If you are present online, if you're in the job search market, you probably already have a personal brand. So I think it's so helpful to think about, can I curate that personal brand? Can I have more of control over what the story that I'm telling around the personal brand is?
It's not, do I need one? It is, you have one.
You have one.
So how do you get to control that brand? From the news team at LinkedIn, I'm Jessi Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. And today, we're talking about personal branding. Nope, don't roll your eyes. I can see you out there doing it. Personal branding may be something you love, or more likely, it's something that makes you roll your eyes and go, eek, this feels awkward. I get it. And if you're an extrovert like me, frankly, there are pieces of it that come particularly easy. I mean, left to my own devices, I would schedule a breakfast followed by another breakfast, a coffee, and then lunch with a friend. I'm just wired that way. People fill me up. I know there are a lot of introverts among our audience, including my wife and both of our producers, and it takes a lot of energy to show up in the world, whether that is in real life or online. So today, we've got a whole episode planned on personal branding for introverts. Our guest is none other than Goldie Chan. Goldie's got a new book out. It is called Personal Branding for Introverts. She is an introvert. She is also, no joke, a writer for the Archie comic strips, and she's got her own social strategy company. It's called Warm Robots. Now, today's episode is going to be extraordinarily pragmatic, like pull out a piece of paper and take notes kind of pragmatic. And if you want even more from Goldie, well, we recorded this episode live a few weeks ago for our premium audience. If you're a premium member, you can unlock the whole thing. We'll put a link in the show notes. For now, here's Goldie Chan.
I think the best way to think about personal branding and where to start is, what are your big goals? Or if that feels overwhelming, what are your smaller goals with your personal brand? Are you looking to climb up the corporate ladder? Are you looking for a new job? Are you simply looking to refresh the online or offline presence that you have? What is that goal first? I think sometimes when we don't think about our goal, what we end up doing with our personal brand is we say, I'm going to post 100 videos or do this, and there's no trajectory with that.
It all becomes very diffuse.
Yes.
And you're not accomplishing anything.
Yes.
Today, we're not just talking about personal branding.
No.
We are targeting introverts.
Yes.
We're
introverts.
I'm going to ask you a really basic question here.
Yes.
How do I know if I'm an introvert?
Imagine you're at a social event or you're at a corporate event and you talk to someone who is so interesting, just really a joy to talk to. And you feel your battery, your internal energy battery, slowly dip down over time.
Yeah.
That probably means you're an introvert. Versus if you're an extrovert or an ambivert, you feel your battery slowly fill up over time, talking to that person, being in that room full of people.
Okay, so here is a prominent misconception that I think people may have about introverts. I'm curious what you think. I think people think that introverts are quiet.
Yes.
It's not necessarily true, right?
No. So I have a tiny section in my book about loud introverts. And I think that introverts can be loud when they really care about something. So one side fact that I think is really fun is I'm an Archie comics writer. Team Betty, by the way, for anyone who's watching and loves Archie comics. And one of my favorite things is I will run into introverts who are so quiet. They'll quietly line up and wait for me to, say, sign their comic book for them. And then when they talk to me, they are like this explosion of joy and enthusiasm. And they're so energetic.
Right.
And they're so loud.
So it's not about the volume. Yeah. It's about what it takes from you to be in conversation with others.
Yes.
And that's in conversation IRL. There are lots of ways to be in conversation with others about your brand, and that's what I want to get into.
Yes.
You have this incredible framework for how to think about developing a personal brand. You call it the 5 C's.
Yes.
And I want you to tick through it with us real quick.
Great.
You can start with the first, which is clarity.
Absolutely. So I actually have a Post-it note that has all my 5 C's so I can say them in order. So the first one is clarity, which is who you are. You need to know what you're about, and you need to know at the core, what is it that you like to not only accomplish, but who do you want to present yourself as? So do you want to be known as a writer or a Hello Monday host? The next one is consistency, which is what you show.
Why is consistency important?
It's so important to keep showing up in the same way over time because we're humans. We see little dots, little data points of each other. And the more you can have those data points be really consistent over time, the more someone will remember you for exactly how you want to be remembered.
I think I've seen some research that says in branding, not personal branding, but branding broadly, people need to see a message 7 times to begin to hold it. That's what you're talking about, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. Okay, so then we get to competency.
Right. So competency is knowing what you know and showing what you know. So I love to say it that way because so many people are so good at what they do and they're such experts, but they would never call themselves experts because that feels very braggy. And I love also thinking about confidence versus ego, which we can go into a little bit later. But I think it's very confident to have competency and to show that competency.
Okay, so number 4 of the 5 is confidence.
Yes.
Is confidence something that you can muster if you don't organically feel it?
Yes. To me, confidence takes, and I'm going to throw in a fun S word, if I may. Confidence takes a little stupidity.
Walk me through it.
So I think that when we are confident, we need to take a little bit of a leap of faith knowing that we know what we know.
Yeah.
And we can show that. Yeah. So confidence is how you show up. Confidence can even be in your posture that you present yourself with.
Sitting up a little
higher. Sitting up a little higher.
Say that, right?
And confidence can also be in the way that you talk with someone else, in the way that you communicate. I think confidence is in so many of those elements, but at its core, confidence is how you feel and how you know that you are the, say, best person for this job.
Okay, there is a 5th and critical C.
Yes, and it's community. And I love community because community is who you surround yourself with. Right. Now, I always think about personal branding like this. If you are a person with a personal brand in the middle of a forest and there's no one else around you, you don't have a personal brand. You just have a lot of trees. And I love trees.
Right.
But you don't have a personal brand because you need an audience. You need a community in order to have a personal brand.
The brand exists in the exchange. And it's not just any community you need, right? I mean, you're particular about what it means to grow the right community.
Yes. You need to have a community that aligns with not only your goals, but your interests. And I think it's also helpful to think community, I think, becomes so dry when we think about it in the context of our career.
Yeah.
But you can have and be part of delightful communities that are outside of your career that then bring you career opportunities. I think a lot about my amazing partner. He runs a fun cat group. Cat group, and he loves cats. And in this amazing cat group, which is massive, people have adopted cats. But people have also gotten job opportunities. People have made friends. People have found their romantic partners in this cat group that maybe doesn't exactly have everything to do with work.
It's participating in the community. Yes. Okay, I want to bring the rest of y'all in. Yes. This question comes from Richard R. in New Jersey. I've always preferred to put my head down and let my work speak for itself. How can I adapt that approach into an effective personal brand? What shift should I make?
I think there's this misconception that speaking up for yourself means being loud in an incredibly obnoxious and egotistical way.
Right.
But I want to say immediately, that's not true. You can show up at work and not be that obnoxious person that we don't like. But what you can do is, first of all, think about showing up online and offline, right? Yeah. So tactically, when we're thinking about these things, one thing to do is when you're in a meeting, physically at work or over Zoom or whatever you're doing, Teams, raise your hand once per small group meeting. And what is helpful for me, and I know this is, and I literally have that Post-it note with me, is I will write down before the meeting one thing that I want to say, and then I just have it there with me. So if I get nervous, if I say, I don't remember what that was that I wanted to say, I have that physical note with me. So that's one tip that's hopefully helpful for offline.
I love that tip.
Yeah.
Always speak in a meeting. Okay, this question comes from UK, from Bafin Aziki. It's about evolving a personal brand. Can my personal brand evolve without confusing my audience? Or does evolution strengthen credibility?
Ooh, that is such a great question. I think at the core, I'm going to use a very nerdy example because I'm a nerd. I think about Pokemon. I think about
I mean, that's not where my head went first, but keep
exactly.
going.
So when you think about Pokemon, if you're familiar at all, they evolve from different versions of themselves that eventually get more and more complex, right?
Uh-huh.
But at the core, they all start as say Bulbasaur, and they all start as a basic character. However, there's certain elements that are translated from every single version. And that's what you want to think with your personal brand.
Yeah.
Because if you start here, and I know that, when I was on my journey in corporate, I started as a marketing assistant and
Right.
eventually became head of marketing. But throughout this, I had the same skill sets that just grew over time. So yes, I absolutely believe that you can grow your credibility if you carry the same core principles through your career in your creative journey.
Okay, so what I love about this, Goldie,
Yes.
is that I think that sometimes when we get so wed to our brand, it
Yes.
becomes a little bit of a cage and doesn't allow
Yes.
us to express the full breadth of our personality.
Yes.
And that actually bleeds beautifully into this question from Lucienne in the US, who says, I'd really love to know how I can meld my playful and unconventional side into my branding while still coming off as professional and reliable.
Oh my gosh. So I have green hair, which if you're watching this, you can probably see that. And one of the things that I was told very early on was you absolutely cannot have colored hair and be taken seriously in any context. However, I've spoken on stages around the world with my green hair without ever having to change that. And I think part of that is your credibility and your expertise. And if you bring these two things to the table, you're allowed that playfulness and that joy. And I think also, let's be honest, in this day and age, we need more of that joy.
We do need more of that joy. Okay, let us talk about how we network strategically in order to unlock new opportunities. The word networking, it can kind of put people off. And so I wonder if you might begin by framing networking a little bit for us.
Absolutely. So I love a phrase you said before. In fact, I use this phrase, so this is why I know we're going to be friends. But one phrase that you used was in conversation with.
Yeah.
And I love this phrase because that is what networking is at its core when it's done right. And when it's done without draining our batteries, whether we're an introvert, extrovert, or ambivert.
Sure.
But I think it's so helpful that you are constantly in conversation with other people and you're connecting with them. And that, at the end of the day, is so important for networking.
I think that's right. And we're going to talk specifically about how we do that.
Yes.
And specifically about how we do that as introverts, right? I mean, if you're an introvert, traditional networking can really drain your batteries, right? It's not giving you much back.
No.
But you have a lot of tips for networking, right?
Yes. So I will start with one. When you are at that big conference, that massive conference, and you are so overwhelmed, one of I think the worst things you can do is say, I'm going to meet 300 people at this conference.
Oh, that's a terrible idea.
It's a terrible idea.
Even for extroverts, bad idea, guys.
But if you say, I'm going to meet 3 people at this conference, and I'm going to have amazing in-depth conversations with those 3 people, what ends up being the magic there is you not only remember those 3 people, but those 3 people remember you.
Yeah.
And that's the connection aspect.
So when we're talking about how to preserve our energy, you also talk about the importance of using quiet focus and taking strategic breaks, right?
Yes. With quiet focus, what I like to do is take time off of your workday, and that can be as simple as 5 to 10 minutes, go into a quiet room, or literally, if you're at, once again, a conference, step outside. And I'm going to say something incredibly revolutionary. Are you ready?
I am ready.
Okay, so when you step outside, you're not going to look at your phone or iPad or any digital device for 2 of those 10 minutes. You're going to not engage online.
It is such a default crutch for me.
Yes.
I'm embarrassed to say that to you, Goldie. I do not like that about myself, but it is hard.
It's hard. And that's why I say it, because when you say take that 10 minutes, and everyone has 10 minutes in their day to do this, taking that 2 minutes helps reset your brain a little bit. And I think so many of us are in default mode of, I'm going to immediately open social media. I'm going to immediately look at these 5 videos. Oh no. And the worst is I'm going to immediately open my email because email, as we know, is a bottomless pit.
Bottomless pit.
Bottomless pit.
And it will take and take and take from you. Another tip that comes up, the importance of a one-on-one and a small group interaction. You suggest we really leverage this, right?
Yes. So I think introverts, and let's be real, some extroverts are so good at this, but introverts are so good at communicating one-on-one.
Yeah.
And they're so good at the deep conversations and really having that in-depth connection and being able to really listen, right? I think listening is so deeply underrated.
Listening is underrated. We know that to be true. This question comes from Mike in New Zealand. I love it.
Yes.
How do I break the ice with another introvert?
Okay. I recently did an introvert workshop at a conference, and there was quite a few other workshops happening at the same time, and I was the introvert one. No one talked to each other in line. It was the quietest queue I've ever seen. And when we got into the room, everybody filed very quietly into the room. I made them do this one exercise, which I apologized and said, you're not going to like this. We're going to do a script. I'm going to give you some words and you're going to just say them out loud. So this was a script. Hi, my name is, and then you fill in your name. So I would say, hi, my name is Goldie. And then I say, what's your name? And then you as Jessi, you would say, my name is Jessi. How are you enjoying the conference? Or what are you up to today? Or what are you interested in? Right. And that was the script. It just was, my name is, what's your name? And I had them practice this back and forth.
So the assumption there is that it's the start. We need to help. It's the cold start problem times 2.
Right.
I love that. Okay, this question comes from Hilesh in Mauritius. Reaching the right people on LinkedIn, Hilesh asks, how do you ensure that your personal branding post reaches your target audience on the platform?
Oh my gosh, this is such a great question. I love this. All right, not to light up when we talk about LinkedIn, but yay, LinkedIn. I think one of the ways to think about it is, first of all, who are you talking to? So if you've identified who your target demographic is, you're already halfway through that puzzle, okay? So if you want to know who you're talking to, identify that first. And once we've identified it, then we can tailor our content. And that's when we think about content strategy. We can start to tailor our content towards that audience. What would they like to read?
Yeah.
What questions are they asking? What conversations would you like to be with them in?
So what I'm hearing underneath that is that the most important thing is not some gimmick, not some type of content, but actually speaking authentically to the people you most want to reach.
Yes, I think it's all about language. Yeah. I think people think about language in terms of here's English versus Spanish, etc. But I think that we all speak in different languages with our peers or with people that we want to work with, etc. So it's helpful to know the language of your target audience.
I love that. Yeah. Okay, we're looking for some advice for job seekers with this next question. It comes from Chuck in Pennsylvania. Can you address this personal branding approach for job seekers in what is a very tough market? And I would say if you are feeling like it is a tough market, you're not alone. It is a tough market.
It is a tough market. So first of all, I think personal brands are so beautiful because they allow opportunities and doors to open for you. And as an introvert, who doesn't love someone else starting the conversation, right? Yeah. And opening that door. So that aside, let's think tactically. What are some ways that you can help yourself get to that next job? First of all, I'd love you to start thinking about keywords.
Yeah.
Right? So especially when we're on a beautiful platform like LinkedIn, one thing that's helpful that I notice not everyone does is even in our headline, even in our summary, sometimes people use different words when they should really be using the word like engineer.
Yeah.
Writer. What is the job title that you want? Product manager. Putting that job title in that headline means that you are now crawlable by those amazing LinkedIn and search engines, and that SEO is so much stronger because you're saying, I am a product manager. I want to be known for that. I want to have LinkedIn put me in those search results for product manager. So knowing those keywords and then placing them on your LinkedIn profile is going to help so much.
I love that as a beginning. And of course, this is a rich vein of inquiry in and of itself. And I encourage folks to explore. I want to talk a little bit about how we do this important online branding without being drained by being on the internet 24/7 all the time. Right? Because if we are on not just LinkedIn, but all the platforms that we can be on to express what we want people to know about us, after a while, we run out of minutes in a day.
Right.
How do you do it?
I try to segment out time. So in my day, I will say, I am going to spend 30 minutes to 1 hour answering comments, or I'm going to spend 2 hours diving into that terrible email inbox. Or I will go across platforms and I'm going to spend 30 minutes here, 30 minutes there, 30 minutes there. And I found that setting a timer is so helpful. And I will, bonus, give you another place I actually set a timer at.
Where?
And that's parties.
Really?
Yes. So I will go to a social event. I'm an introvert with social anxiety. I will set a timer and I will say after 45 minutes, I give myself permission to leave.
I love that. I love that. And I so appreciate you just saying so eloquently, I have social anxiety in these situations.
Yes.
Because me too. And so
Yes.
many people I know,
Yes.
right? It's a great technique.
Yes.
You have so many tips and tricks. One thing that I am interested in is like you put out a lot of content online.
Yes.
When and how are you doing that?
I never sleep. No, just kidding. No, that's terrible.
Take that
Strike
back,
that.
folks.
Take that back. You didn't hear that. I am constantly creating though. So
Yeah.
when I am, for example, walking around beautiful New York City, which is where we are right now, I will think that's interesting. I should do a little video. I should do a little photo. So I'm always thinking creatively. That's just me as a person. When I don't have that kind of creative mindset though,
Right.
I do try to bucket content. I think just like we have a bank account for our finances, our money, it's helpful to have a content bank for our content. So I love to create pieces that are evergreen, that live in my content bank, and that I batch create so I can always reach into that bank account and pull out a beautiful LinkedIn article or a post that I've been sitting on that I wanted to share. And that helps.
Okay, so do you do that? Do you essentially batch that content and work on it during your most creative time of the week? Or is that work that you do in the margins or during sort of more administrative windows of your week?
Definitely, I do it when I feel very creative. So for me, it's a feeling when I know, oh, I am really in it right now. Like I have just the best creative juices. So I'm going to take this next 2 to 3 hours and I'm going to create a ton of content. For other people who maybe the creative flow isn't quite like that, it's helpful to say, okay, every Tuesday, right, from 10 to 11 a.m., I'm going to sit down and write a couple posts.
Yeah, I love that. And whichever strategy works for you, that comes down to knowing yourself well.
Yes.
How do you feel about recycling good content?
I think this is the power of evergreen content. Because when you do evergreen content, you can almost always recycle it. And I love that. So I would say this, the caveat being, if you take a post that does well and then you repost it every single day of that same week, maybe not a great idea.
Is there a time frame by which everything old is new again on social?
Oh gosh, I will say this, if you take a post that did well, and then 3 months later, which is, as you know, a lifetime in social media, and you repost that same piece 3 months later, most likely, most folks will not remember that you did that at all.
Wow. That is both damning and wonderful.
Yes.
This question comes from Miles. It's about staying authentic with AI proliferation.
Whew.
I know. In a world where AI can make anyone look polished, how do you keep a personal brand human and original without falling into work slop?
You know, I have so many thoughts and feelings about this, and I'll start with one word that I think has been vilified, but I think is beautiful, and that's mistakes. I think it is human to err.
Yeah.
Right? And I love that phrase because when you see a ton of AI slop, the slopification of the internet, right? I like to actually think about it as the blandification of the internet. AI makes us incredibly bland because if I put in a prompt and you put in a prompt into the same LLM, it will likely give us very similar results. And that then makes everything bland.
Yeah.
But you know what's wonderful is when we have little mistakes sprinkled in there, which only we as humans can do.
Yeah.
And I think it's really, I would rather read something that has more mistakes in it, a couple misspellings here and there, or maybe the grammar was incorrect. Sorry, my 6th grade English teacher. But whatever that is, lightly sprinkled in there, because that is what makes it human. And the more human we can make things, the more our content is, quite frankly, attractive.
Okay. All right. It is our final question together. This one comes from Molly in Illinois. She says, I'm highly uncomfortable approaching my community to request referrals, recommendations, or leads. How do you suggest going about that without coming across as awkward?
Okay. So I think that there's a great phrase I want to introduce to this conversation, and that's cringe mountain.
Cringe mountain.
How do we summit cringe mountain, which is the same idea of awkwardness? Well, first of all, I think, once again, it's helpful. I'm going to throw back another S word I use, which people don't like to hear, which is stupid. I think we need to be both smart and stupid at the same time. I think that we need to be really intelligent about what our ask is and doing a lot of research about what that ask is. And then when it comes time to actually doing that post, we need to be a little stupid. We need to jump off the cliff into cringe mountain. No, we need to be able to make that leap of faith and then do the ask. But it's so helpful to have done that research and also have an incredibly narrow ask. So if your ask is, I love referrals for my lawnmower business. I'm looking for people who are in the tri-state area, who are families, et cetera, et cetera. See how I'm kind of narrowing down? The narrower the ask is, the better.
I love this question because it's something I struggle with a lot too. And one thing I think is one way that I try to push myself up cringe mountain is I try to think about what's the worst that can happen, and to play out the worst scenario in my mind, and to stop and think about, well, could I live with that? Worst scenario is they say no.
Right.
And the next time I see them at the grocery store, they give me that look that says, oh my God, I can't believe she would ask me for that.
Right.
And I think all the way through that, and I think, well, how does that really, I'm okay.
Yeah.
And sometimes when you get to the other end of that, you realize the risk is not nearly as big as you think it is.
No. And I think as someone with anxiety, I also go through that thought experiment of everything could explode in this situation. But the chances of that happening are so low. And I think it's really powerful to be the person that opens your own doors too.
That was Goldie Chan, author of Personal Branding for Introverts. There's so much I'm going to take from this episode and apply. Yes, even me, the extrovert, can find things to apply in this episode. For me, the metaphor was cringe mountain. This idea of screwing up the courage to make an ask, like a full-throated ask of someone that I'm a little nervous about asking. I can do it, you can do it. Let's talk about exactly how we're going to do it at office hours this week. As usual, Sarah Storm, our senior producer, and I will go live Wednesday afternoon at 3 p.m. Eastern. You can find us on the LinkedIn news page, or you can check the show notes for a link. I hope to see you there. And if this episode was helpful to you, please share it. Okay, I will be right back here next Monday with a fresh episode. Hello Monday is a production of LinkedIn News. Lolia Briggs and Rachel Karp produce our show. Sarah Storm is our senior producer. Sound design and engineering by Asaf Gadron. Our theme music was composed just for us by the mysterious Breakmaster Cylinder. Michaela Greer is a friend of the show forever. Kyle Ransom-Walsh is editor-at-large of editorial graphics. Dave Pond is head of production and creative operations. Courtney Coop is head of original programming. Dan Roth is the editor-in-chief of LinkedIn. I'm Jessi Hempel, and this is Hello Monday. See you next week.